according to Matthew.
Glory to you, Lord.
After the Sabbath, as the first day of the week was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord descending from heaven came and rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothing white as snow. For fear of him, the guards shook and became like dead men. But the angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid. I know that you are here looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He is not here. He has been raised, as he said. Come, see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples, he has been raised from the dead, and indeed he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him. This is my message for you." So they left the tomb quickly with fear and great joy, and ran to tell his disciples. Suddenly Jesus met them and said, "Greetings." And they came to him, took hold of his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord.
Please be seated. Snazzy, huh? Last inside joke, I promise. So, every year we pick one of these stories. They're all similar in some ways. They're all a little bit different, but they're all telling mostly the same story, and they all begin like this. As the first day was done, as the sun rose. One of them, the Gospel of John, even begins, while it was still dark. Begins at the very beginning of the day. After the Sabbath, at the very beginning of the first day. If anybody else was up then and they were going to work, it was not a day to go and visit the tomb. It was not a day to go and do that. It was a day to get back to normal. It was a day, Passover was over, it was a day to go back to doing what we usually do. And they were there that day because no one else would be there. They knew that no one else would be there. And so after everything that had happened, the first thing that we hear about them, the first witnesses, the first viewers of the empty tomb, is this: they were still afraid. They were afraid not just in general, not just theoretically, they were afraid literally to be seen with Jesus. They were afraid to even be seen at his grave. They were afraid to be seen. But they were brave enough to go. I mean, that's good. It's good that they were brave enough to go. They were brave enough to brave the guards. They were brave enough to be there. They didn't want to be seen, but they went. They were women. Every gospel tells us that. It was so true, so burningly, abundantly true that they were women, that none of the Gospels could hide it. They all kind of tried to. They tried to bury the lead on that one. But they couldn't. It was true. They were women. No one else was there. They were terrified, it says, in the Gospel of Mark. They were terrified and they said nothing afterwards to anyone. The story you just heard, the story you have in front of you, in the Gospel of Matthew, it speaks of their fear, their being afraid, but it also speaks of great joy. They went out with fear and great joy. Joy and fear. Joy. This is a day of joy, because Jesus is not dead, but alive. This morning, my Facebook news feed was filled with statements like that. I have a lot of pastor friends. I have a lot of very churchy friends, and so my Facebook news feed was filled with statements like, Jesus is alive, hallelujah, all the things that we say. But what does it mean? They had no idea what it meant. The people who were first there had no idea what it meant. We think that, they knew, and they immediately, their hearts and their minds were open, but they had no idea what it meant. And I don't think we know what it means either. It means a lot of things. It means that fear is not most powerful. It means that death is not most powerful. It means that even power is not most powerful. It means that that's just the way things are, is not most powerful. It means that being broken and scarred and useless and dead, these are not permanent conditions, ever. It means that we have a chance to do better, to make things right, to recover, to be restored, to have our faith, even our faith, restored in God, yes, but also in people, in life, in the world, in the truth that it is good. Jesus is alive, and so we are alive, and we don't have to be afraid, and we may be free. Freedom is inherently scary, because it has a big vulnerability component. If I'm free, I'm responsible for what I say and do. I can't pin it on someone else telling me. I can't pin it on the systems and the sins that I have been freed from. If I'm free, I'm part of the solution. I can't pin it on the problems. If I'm free, I have no excuse, whoever I am, when I judge others, because they may be free too. And what my background and experience might call discipline, their background and experience might call slavery. We all need to be set free from the power of sin and death, but how those powers enslave us is different for everyone. And if I'm truly free, I know that, and I apologize when I forget it. If I'm free, I can't pretend that I'm still enslaved. I want to read you a little bit from what comes before this in the Gospel of Matthew. The next day, the day after Jesus was crucified, that is after the day of preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember what that impostor said when he was alive. After 3 days I will rise again. Therefore command that the tomb be made secure until the 3rd day. Otherwise his disciples may go and steal him away and tell the people, 'He has been raised from the dead.' And the last deception would be worse than the first." Pilate said to them, "You have a guard of soldiers. Go, make it as secure as you're able." So they went with the guard and made the tomb secure by sealing the stone. We don't normally hear that. We leave it out of the lectionary. We skip right over it. People whose lives have been ordered and sustained by the fallout of power and fear for so long are always deep down terrified that someone or something might point out that the emperor has no clothes, that the empire of fear can't contain the living spirit that's breaking bonds and breathing new life into the world. The terror is real because there's a big vulnerability component. The spirit of life can't be controlled or contained, predicted, or put under surveillance. Fear is profitable. Freedom is messy, unpredictable. They said nothing because they were terrified. Even in Matthew, they have to be told twice. First by an angel, and then by Jesus himself. Do not be afraid. But guess what? It goes on from there. It never tells that they actually tell it. They actually go and do what first an angel and then Jesus told Next it says, while they were going, some of the guard went into the city and told the chief priests everything that had happened. After the priests had assembled with the elders, they devised a plan to give a large sum of money to the soldiers, telling them, "You must say his disciples came by night and stole him away while we were asleep. If this comes to the governor's ears, we will satisfy him and keep you out of trouble." So the guards took the money and did as they were directed. And that story is still told to this day. Did you notice the end of the women? The last time that they're mentioned, Jesus said go, and it says while they were going. And he never tells whether they actually got there, whether they actually said anything or not. In Luke, in the Gospel of Luke, they told, and it says the apostles thought that their words were an idle tale, and they did not believe them. In John, the people who witnessed the resurrection didn't understand, didn't believe, didn't recognize, and didn't stop being scared. Do not be afraid. He is not here. He has been raised, as he said. The witnesses, the people who were actually there, reacted with confusion, with crossed signals, with continuing fear. And they were the witnesses. They were the ones who saw something amazing. You won't believe what they saw, what they heard, what they did. God did something amazing. And it took them a long time to see it. And to figure out how to react to it, it took them a while to recover, to reorganize, to reconstruct and restructure their individual lives and their community fellowship. They had to rethink everything that they thought they knew about themselves, about the world, about what this all means. God is still doing something amazing. Still bringing new life out of death. Still bringing hope out of despair. Still bringing joy out of sorrow. And it still takes us a long time to see it, and to figure out how to live our lives because of it. We tend to assume, oh, we know, we've been going to church for a while, we've heard this story before, we got that when we were kids, etc. Jesus, love, got it. But really, God did and does something amazing. And against everything that we see and feel every day, against everything that we're tempted to go into or to assume, maybe it's possible. Maybe we could be different. Maybe we could live different. Maybe I could be different. Maybe all is not lost. Maybe we don't have to be afraid anymore. Maybe life is good. Maybe love is all around. Maybe the Spirit is in me. Maybe it's in you. Maybe we're blessed. Maybe there's a new life for us. Maybe. How will you react? Will you think about it? Will you consider everything that you thought you knew? Do not be afraid. Seek first, Jesus said, for the kingdom, the presence, the will of God is first, before the other things, before the fear, before the certainty, before the assumption, before just the way things are, because the way it is has been completely changed by what God did and God does. Try to see it. Really try in your life to see it. It's all around us. Everything has been made new, whether we believe it or not. Jesus is alive, and whether we believe it or not, we are too. Maybe for the first time in a long time, and forever, we are too. May the peace of God, which passes all understanding, guard your hearts and guard your minds. In Christ Jesus, I pray.